We have the strength, we have the power, but we have to have the courage to organize and mobilize and go to long distance, because all of these fights are long distance fights. They can't be won in a day. They can't be won in a week. They can't be won in a month. Many of them can't be won in a year. But if we're willing to go the distance to fight, we can win, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, we can win. I'm so glad to be here with the Power Coalition. I'm so glad to be here with an organization called People Organized and working for the empowerment and rebuilding of our communities. And one of the best things that you can do today is join the Power Coalition, because they can only do as much as we support them. If we would join these organizations, these grassroots organizations that are fighting on our behalf, these organizations would be strong enough to win these battles. But we always let a handful of people, one or two brothers and sisters, carry all the weight. And then when they worn themselves out, lost their jobs, lost their families, they out in the street, then we say, oh, that was a good brother and that was a good sister. We cannot let a handful of people carry the burden of the fight against police brutality, carry the burden of the fight against home foreclosures, carry the burden of the fight for the liberation of our people. We can't let that be on a few people. That's all of our responsibility. All of our responsibility. So we all should support not only the Power Coalition, but all those organizations that are working for the liberation of our people. Today is May 19th. This is a special day in the history of black people in this country. Today is the birthday of Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, also called Omar Wali in Africa. Had Malcolm X been alive today, he would have been 87 years old. And I can remember, I'm old enough to remember how Malcolm X was viewed when Malcolm X was alive. Everybody loved Malcolm X today. They got Malcolm X t-shirts. They got Malcolm X hats. They got Malcolm X buttons. They got movies about Malcolm on TV. But let me tell you something. When Malcolm was walking this earth, if Malcolm was on that side of the street, there were black people that would run to the other side of the street, because we were scared of Malcolm X. We were scared of the things that he was saying, because he was speaking the naked truth to our people. And the powers that be didn't like it, and many of our own people didn't like it, because it was in direct contradiction to what they were being taught in school, to what they were being taught in the church. They didn't want to hear that black talk. We got people in our community walking around here today. If you try to say something about the history and culture of black people, they say, I don't want to hear that black stuff. Even today in the 21st century we have it. And we have it in our own families. We have that backward thinking. But everybody loves Malcolm today. But when Malcolm was walking this earth, people didn't love him. I remember when I brought my first Malcolm X album, I had to go in the basement. I was only about 13 years old. I had to go in the basement and play that album, because my mother said, I don't want to hear that Muslim talk. They wouldn't even say Muslim, they said Muslim. I want to hear that Muslim talk, because it was Malcolm that was telling us the truth about ourselves. When in the 1960s, we would put clothespins on the nose of our children, because we didn't want our children to have their natural African features. We would put clothespins on their nose, so their noses wouldn't be flat and African looking, they would be white looking noses. It was Malcolm who said, you can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself. And this self-hatred that Malcolm was struggling against still exists in our community today. We still got people walking around here talking about light skin and dark skin, talking about good hair and bad hair, nappy hair and straight hair. All of that is backward talk, backward thinking, designed to make you hate yourself and love your oppressor. That's what it's all about. And that's what Malcolm was saying in 1965 when he was assassinated. When Malcolm X was asked about black nationalism, they said, Malcolm, what does black nationalism mean? Malcolm X said, black nationalism means we control the politics of our community. We control the economics of our community. And we control the social policies of our community. That's the black nationalism that Malcolm X was talking about. When our people were struggling to get the right to vote because they were keeping millions of our people from voting in the South in the 1960s. That's why they had to pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. It was Malcolm X who said, if I die in the morning, there's one thing I got to tell you. It's got to be the ballot or the bullet. It will be liberty or it will be death. Those are the words of Malcolm X in 1965. And I see it scared some of y'all today. It scared them over there. That's why they blew that horn. I'm telling you, that's what the Malcolm X I remember. It was Malcolm X who said, I don't see an American dream. I see an American nightmare. Because he didn't go for that old sweet talk that people were talking. He looked at the conditions of our people in our communities, the rundown housing, the substandard schools that our children had to go to. Malcolm saw all of that. He said, I didn't see an American dream, I see an American nightmare. It was Malcolm X who said, the brother was alluding to this when he spoke earlier, it was Malcolm X who said, back during slavery, there were two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. And Malcolm said, we got some field Negroes running around here today. You know what Malcolm was talking about. Malcolm was talking about when Master's house caught on fire, the slaves wouldn't put it out. They prayed for a breeze. They prayed for the house to burn down. But when the master was sick, the house Negro would say, what's the matter, master? We sick? We sick. The house Negro loved the master more than the master loved himself. And we still got some house Negroes running around here today. That's why, brothers and sisters, you got to study. You got to read. You can't rely on the radio and the television to tell you about your history and your heroes and your heroines. You got to go down there and get Alex Haley's The Autobiography of Malcolm X and read it for yourself. But better than that, go get what Malcolm said. Don't get no interpretation of Malcolm. Go get Malcolm X speaks. Go get By Any Means Necessary. Go get Malcolm X on Afro-American history. Go get Malcolm X, The Ballot or the Bullet. Malcolm X's Last Message. Message to the Grassroots. These speeches are written down. You can probably get them online. Instead of watching all that foolishness we watch on television or on the computer, Google Malcolm X and get his speeches and start studying them. What difference does it make if we wear them on our chest or if we wear them on our hat and our children don't know a damn thing about whose name that is? Our children walk around here talking about who was Malcolm X. They talking about that because we didn't teach them who Malcolm X was. And we have to do that. Some other things we need to do. Find you a street in the black community. You got a Martin Luther King Boulevard and a Rosa Parks Boulevard. Get you a Malcolm X Street. Get one of these schools with a number on it and change the name. In Newark, New Jersey, in 1972, we changed the name of Southside High School to Malcolm X Shabazz High School. Let me tell you what happened when we changed the name from Southside to Malcolm X High School. The teachers went to the students and they told the students that if you have a diploma with Malcolm X's name on that diploma, you won't get into college. They went to the football team and told them if you got a diploma with Malcolm X's name on that diploma, you won't be recruited for football teams in college. They consciously, the administration and the faculty, consciously tried to turn the students against the name change of their school. But I tell you, it was Malcolm X in 1972, and it's still Malcolm X in 2012. And we're not going to let them, they still trying to change it back. But what's wrong with us having schools named after us? I mean, we got schools named after our slave masters. You got Washington School. Washington was a slave master. The first 7 presidents were all slave masters. The White House was built by slaves. The capital of the country was a swamp that was cleared out by slaves, built up by slaves. Even they will tell you Benjamin Banneker, a black man, designed the city, but they don't tell you that it was slave labor. And until slavery was abolished, the people in the White House that were working were slaves. It was not just a White House, it was a house of bondage.